Oh, oh. Thanks, Luke.
Okay, folks, we're going to wait just a few more minutes to let people get here. Roads aren't great again, last time it was like this, so we'll wait a few more minutes to let people trickle in, and then we'll get started. Thank you. Okay, folks, good evening. Welcome to Town Hall number 2 of the Kenai Community Coalition on Cannabis. My name is Eric Philip. I'm the co-founder with Mark Tyler, the taller gentleman here. And I think we're ready to go. And just to get started, give you an idea of what we were hoping to cover tonight is kind of tell you a little bit about what happened last time if you weren't here, and then cover some current events. We were here last time just over a month ago on the 16th of December. And a whole lot has happened just in that 1 month, both locally and nationwide. So kind of cover a little bit of that, and then talk about a couple of important laws that are coming up quicker than we had thought. So I scrapped some of what I had planned. We were going to bring a couple of ancillary business people, a realtor, accountant, maybe a banker, but we put that until the next time just because there's so much to cover, and I wanted to try to get that here. We were here about 2 hours last time. I'm going to try to make it a little faster this time. So I'm going to cover some of the local things, the zoning laws, the legislation that's possibly going to be pending. And Mark Tyler's going to talk to you a little bit about the economic forecasts that have been put out, and he's kind of distilled them and tailored them to the local community. And we're going to hear from a couple of local groups that are trying to get, to let you know, their advocacy groups. Lead Table and Solid Felt, just trying to get people to know that they're here and if they're interested in particularly the women in the cannabis industry banding together locally. It's a fantastic idea. There's some national groups that do the same thing. I think there's some in Alaska. We're kind of doing our own thing down here, so they're going to give you a short presentation each. And then we're going to cover, Mark has a slideshow presentation that's going to distill his 30 minutes down into about an 8.5-minute video to make it go faster. And then we're going to also have some Q&A. Some of the local lawmakers are here and have agreed to sit up here and maybe field some questions. We're not going to necessarily put them on the spot. They have a lot of learning to do in the short term, so we can't expect them to give us their final answer, as it were. But if we're able to talk to them in our forum, maybe it feels a little more open than in theirs, and you'll feel a little more likely to be able to be heard and to ask what you want to ask. So, and meeting one, we went through and gave an open mic to anybody who had anything to say, comments or questions. And we were able to come up with a list of things that people were concerned about from just an implementation standpoint and community safety standpoint. We covered a lot of that, and as they were bringing them up, I was trying to write them down, and we came up with about 6 common ones that we had heard of. Laws are popping up faster. We think those might even be worthy of some working groups by themselves. We might even expand that if people have ideas. I know Jason Howard may want to do some stuff with veterans affairs and accessibility to medical marijuana. So that would be a great topic all by itself. So any ideas you guys have is fine with us. But let's start with, on the national level, some things that have happened just in the last few days. Mark's able to pull up 2 things happened. You know that most people know Washington, D.C., which is a state, of course, voted overwhelmingly, 2/3 voted to legalize and set up retail shops. But unfortunately, they're under the thumb of Congress, and Congress quickly acted to say, slow down. But in that process, there was a lot of give and take, and at the end, it turns out that although they didn't get retail shops yet, Congress actually defunded for the first time the Department of Justice and the DEA essentially from going after medical marijuana clinics in the states. According to the Cole memo we talked about last time, they basically gave a blueprint for all the things. I think there were 8 bullet points that if states had strict laws that followed that minimum skeleton, then those states would be left alone, and those people in compliance with those state laws wouldn't have to fear the retribution of the DEA because there was so much uncertainty. It was more or less very random when they were picking people off. They would bust one place, but there were so many of them in California that the tide has turned there. We talked last time, it was just a day or 2 before our last meeting, the national federal government decided to let the Indian tribes do whatever they wanted on their own land. They could cultivate and sell. So you can think of where our Indian casinos down in the state, there will likely be legalized recreational adult use and medical marijuana in those same areas. If those tribes choose to do that, which will be large. If you covered, there were about 5 other states that were going to look at legalization in the next year or 2. The largest of which is California, given their population. That would be a tipping point probably in this, especially as Congress backs off and banks are starting to get more willing to do this. A venture capital group came forward. Peter Thiel, I think, is the name of the guy, the big name, and PayPal. He did something big, PayPal, I think. And the fact that they're getting in and putting millions and millions of dollars into venture capital legitimizes and shows people that they're willing to take these risks. So the risks are coming down or the rewards are going up. I think it's probably a little of both. So when you look at what Congress just did in the last couple of days, defunding the Department of Justice from the medical marijuana bust, and then as a result of that, this memo came out. Now it's the Holder memo, so we have the full memo, the FinCEN memo, and now the Holder memo. These 3 memos are extremely important. We can get you all of them if you'd like them. We don't have them to hand out, but these things are important because it's showing more and more of a tolerance. I think with the 2016 election coming up in the right wing, Republicans, where they're at with Tea Partiers, I think the inconsistency of liberty and free markets butting heads against, what's in your medicine cabinet. I think that's starting to unravel for them. So it may be a key issue that actually the right switches over and endorses more even so than the left. So, and these things are showing it. We have Republicans are dominating both houses, and the White House, or the Supreme Court. So we think that that's a big turning point. And then locally, a couple of very important things are happening. Local representative at the state level, Paul Seaton, who was here last time and stopped by and spoke with me, he pre-filed a bill called House Bill 59. Mark, if you have the bill, this is just the first page of it, and it is pretty tailored in what he's going after. Essentially, he is trying to delay for 1 year the implementation of the regulations to allow commercial concentrate. But he even limited it further than that. He only limited it does not include hash or hash oil, and it only is for concentrates that aren't distilled by anything other than, something other than a water solvent. So any chemical processes would not be legal to do on a commercial level, whether or not that's legal in your home, which is why the industry, like Abel will talk to you about why they strongly support it. It's, in Colorado, it's almost half of the retail sales is in concentrates and foods and elixirs and tinctures, things other than, smoking a flower. So that's a big part of it down there. I don't know how big it'll be in Alaska because we don't have anything comparable to it, only people doing it at home. But the worry is that, chemical distillation can be complicated and can be dangerous if done by unwitting people who are watching YouTube videos. So his group is strongly supporting the safety measures to have it in place. It's also part of the actual law. The law we passed by over 6%, it very clearly defines marijuana to include marijuana concentrates. So in House Bill 59 butt straight up against that, and whether or not it's legal, I don't know. If it does get passed or something like it, by the time you're done litigating that in court, that year will probably have come and gone, because the court system only works so fast and the different levels you have to go through, you have to exhaust certain remedies. So I don't know how far that'll play out, but he did limit it in scope, so to his credit, it wasn't all encompassing, but it is pretty important to certain groups, subgroups of this industry. So we'll see how that goes. I spoke to him. I think the man seems like a heart in the right place. I don't find any enemies to this cause at all. I think he's genuinely what he's trying to do. So I don't think there's anything untoward. There is some rumors that we're hearing from people that are high up in the government who are going to be implementing this, that they think there are legislators who are going to try to create the marijuana control board rather than the alcohol beverage control board, just to delay it, because once we get 2 years out of the election, they can undo all of it. I don't think that'll happen. Mark will talk to you more about what Governor Bill Walker has said about we are going to meet these timetables. The ABC board will be doing it because I'm not going to miss these deadlines. I don't know how they'll feel about delaying the chemical concentrate deadline, but it's certainly an important thing. And then locally, we have people at Teleworld Phase 1. At least tomorrow night will be the first time I think it's talked about in full local legislation. Go that big. To the bottom. Kelly Wolf, I think, represents the Sea Lock area, and he's going to introduce it's about a one-sentence borough ordinance that says the operation of marijuana cultivation facilities is prohibited in the area of the borough outside the city. In the parlance of the statute that we just passed, marijuana cultivation facilities essentially grow. And what's important about that is, first of all, 99.8% of the land mass in the borough is outside of the city. Almost 16,000 square miles, only about 100 square miles of the city. So this is a huge part of our, of at least the land mass in essentially an unzoned area. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as I segue into the zoning issue. It seems like really what it is the zoning is a way to create a mega zone around the entire borough and outlaw one and only one thing, not concentrate, not production. You bring piles of marijuana down from acres, you just turn it into other products and sell it in retail. This simply prohibits growing, and only outside the cities in an area where people live without zones. So if you think that's actually a problem, 2 years to sell your property or move to the cities where the rules are a lot tighter of what can and can't be next door to you, kennels and dogs, split kennels, meat farms. I think we have a big deal in Kenai, Millbury that. But in this situation, you'll see in the statute itself that we passed, we actually give local control to cities and boroughs to pass time, place, and manner restrictions and limit the number of licenses. So, Will said that he was terrified, when he talked to terrified, they would pop up, marijuana farms would pop up in your neighborhood. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing will pop up. The reason you will even know what's in that warehouse is because you're going to have to probably give notice under the regulations to everybody within a certain distance, say a mile of your warehouse, what's going up. You will have an opportunity to set the local government can also make more pinpoint regulations or ordinances that limit great buffer zones. They're doing it in Fairbanks. Like one day after we had our first working group, everybody starts announcing working groups in town halls, And the Fairbanks Borough one, they're taking very seriously. They have a whole list of things they're covering there with buffer zones, obviously schools, halfway houses. We don't have one down here, but things that make sense. Nobody wants to have one directly next door to a school. I don't think one really has much to do with the other, but for form's sake, it makes sense. But you would want to have it in a place that your neighbors don't hate you. The worry was that it would drop property values for people. There's no evidence. There hasn't been a single study. We were here at the last town hall. Nobody mentioned this. But I'm sure some people are concerned about having one next door. But that's the nature of living in a rural area. You could get a neighbor you don't necessarily like, but you'll have opportunities, unlike kennels and shooting ranges and airports. You'll actually have an opportunity to object to it and know about it and give your say. And it's very easy locally to create smaller zones that do create buffer zones, and there's lots of case law in the last where people use this that. It doesn't take very much. Essentially only takes one person petitioning to get the zoning and planning commission to look at it, which is where I'm going to segue into my last topic, which is where I think that Mr. Wolf's proposition ordinance runs into the big problems. First of all, it looks like a duck, waddles like a duck, and quacks like a duck. It's probably a duck. It seems like just a zone. They make a zone that makes just growing marijuana illegal everywhere except the city. So almost everywhere on the peninsula, no matter how big your land is, no matter how far away from the next guy you are, you can't use your land as you see fit. That really is a zone. And Alaska is illegal to zone by ordinance or initiative without going through the ordinary process, which is to send it to the planning commission. When the borough gives, and the state gives to the boroughs, and the boroughs give to the city the ability to zone themselves, they also have to establish comprehensive plans. And any kind of zoning has to go to the commission, who then holds hearings. It's a very contemplative, august process they go through, and it makes sense in the Alaska Supreme Court that said in the case Griswold versus Homer, where the man sued himself and went all the way up to, and they overruled our two local judges and said you don't get to do it by initiative and you don't get to do it by ordinance without by skipping the planning and zoning process. That's in there for a reason. So they're gonna, I would assume, you put it in Title 10 in there with like fireworks and things like that, hazardous material. But really, what it is the mega zone to prohibit cannabis cultivation only and only in certain places. So I think there'll be a legal challenge to that if it ever gets in front of the voters and actually gets passed. I don't think either of those is very likely. But if that does happen, it would probably be tied up in court for 2 or 3 years. If it goes up, I think there's a good chance the Supreme Court would say that is a zone. You have to go through the planning process so that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, so that, in their words, this would be agreed to. First of all, zoning by initiative by the ordinance will exceed the legislative power. The participation of the city's planning commission in the zoning process is required, and it's more than just a procedural requirement. And the reason is that the commission's role is to analyze the impact of the proposed changes in light of the city development goals, as stated in the comprehensive plan, and to suggest other changes that could accompany the proposed zoning amendment. So, in other words, they're saying the Alaska Supreme Court said in 2008, this is not something you just tinker with a simple majority vote. It's more complex than that, and it needs to be consistent with the overall plan of that area, whatever subject it is, and it's enough for borough is huge. So I think that if you're interested in that topic, it's supposed to, if I understand right, going to come up tomorrow night at Kenai Borough Assembly, 6 o'clock. So we will have some people there. If you're able to show up and say your piece, again, people in this room on both sides, and that's fine. That's how it should be. I learn a lot more by talking to people who disagree with me than the people who agree. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Tyler to let him talk a little bit about, or show you a quick video that talks about the economic impact and forecast as we put them together from the most reliable sources that people are using, at least currently.
Just before I start this, we have a website. It's KenaiCCC.com.
And KenaiCC.com, CCC.com, and all of these materials that we're talking about now, all the memos, all the research materials, including this video and such, will all be on the website. And the website will be kind of the grand repository for all of our sources and stuff, including all the research materials. And about 5 or 6 critical resource materials went into this. MPG Alaska did a study for our state, as well as Oregon, Washington. It also takes from the legislative research brief that was done for Lisa. And just a lot of the critical facts and figures. And I just kind of distilled probably about 30 minutes worth of critical material into this little video. Turn off the light.
Turn down the here.
Here it is. Getting the sound now. And I think, like I said, if anybody wants any of those materials or to review the video again, it'll be on the website, or you can also just come to the social page, Facebook page, we'll have it there as well. A couple interesting points with not just this information, but other information. Um, as most folks well know, that I think these fat days of Alaska are probably few and far between as far as the heavy reliance on the oil and our resources. And I think that there's going to be some major changes with the oil being, there's a lot of people with the Saudi sheik that basically say they believe it's going to go over $100 a barrel. That could be a very serious deal for us for the next however long. And with these budget cuts and with all of this these oil tax revenue not being what it used to be back up for the last couple of years, the last 20, 30 years, we're going to have to be looking for other means, and that means also kind of scaling back on arrests and using our resources to incarcerate the people in jail for cannabis possession and likely activities, as well as another side. I just saw an article too about one of the things we're talking about is the municipality profit sharing stuff. So that would possibly mean if they're trying to make some serious cuts in the budget, they may end that, and some of the sources that we relied on for a borough municipality may dry up. We're already seeing it even with our nonprofits. My wife and Eric really sit on the board of and they've just lost all their grants. And I'm hearing this now from all over the place. So all this funding and all these resources that we've enjoyed for so long are going to be going away. And I would tend to believe that's going to be across the board with social programs and other programs that will probably, that would end up kind of focusing on rehab or kind of drug-related social programs. Those will probably not have the adequate funding. So we got to kind of start thinking about how to go about this differently. In a lot of these forecasts and such, they're trying to do the best they can with the limited information. So all of these forecasts, what they're finding out, they don't usually kind of end up where they're forecasting. And to that avail, there's the Washington, their forecasts of projected revenue and sales were off. It's been a lot greater. Same thing with Colorado. The benefits, the sales revenue, the jobs, and the tax revenue have all been more than what they predicted. And what I tried to do here is try to give you guys, try to give the Kenai Peninsula a bit of an idea of what the demand is going to be here. Nobody else has done that. I was able to kind of take some figures and kind of create a formula for that. And when it says 800 pounds, that 800 pounds is strictly for that 4 metric tons that they're predicting that's going to be the conversion factor. So they're having a conversion factor of about 22%, where they're going to say 17 pounds is what they demand, the total aggregate demand from black market, which is Alaska's mostly black market. We don't have any real gray market. We have some medical, some some little medical stuff, but not enough to even register. It's predominantly all black market, and they predict about 17. When you add tourism, you add other things, it's probably in the neighborhood of probably 20 to maybe 25 or more metric tons of black market cannabis. And they're, that 22% conversion factor is pretty minimal. And so the one thing the Kenai borough has is we get a real large red run. We get a lot of fishing tourism. We get a lot of people visiting in the summer. So our actual demand will be extensive. And the other kind of component to all this is that conversion factor is the most important kind of element in all of this, because if we're not converting from the black market to the regulated adult use retail market, then we're going to continually see we're going to see more problems. We're going to see problems with that. So the key for the legislature and for everybody involved in this business is to ensure that all the elements are there, so we can convert more and more people. And quality is going to be there, because by the nature of the beast, the quality is going to be mandated. That's a really good thing. But what's not going to be as regulated is the price. So that price has to be very consistent, if not very competitive with that black market, or you're going to see what's happened in Colorado and Washington, where there's been black market sales and there's been healthy sales. But as you see that price come down, it's inverted. It just, that conversion factor just skyrockets. And that's what, that's kind of what we're all trying to do, is just convert to that adult use model. And then the other thing about this, not only with this, but also I've seen some other, SAM, I don't know if you're familiar with SAM, they're kind of the anti-group. They're mostly backed by medical practitioners who want to kind of be the gatekeepers between cannabis and everybody else. They feel like there needs to be medical requirements. So they're releasing some infographics and stuff that show, 1 to 2 years. And in order to have a really healthy perspective on this whole kind of program, you need to be looking at it from a 5, 7, 10-year plan. Looking at this at 1 year, 2 years, and say, okay, hey, this didn't work, this did this, that's not real responsible. You need to be looking at this for 3 and 5 and 10-year kind of measurements. And I think as you kind of look at it from a more broad perspective, and we do have things in place that support that conversion rate, we will slowly over time, we'll start seeing all of that projected 17.8 tons of demand supplied by the black market slowly erode until we start getting most, if the majority of our demand and supply into that retail market.
Wasn't the new study in Colorado showing over 10,000 new jobs directly related to seed sale versus ancillary business?
Yeah. In fact, Colorado is at a 6-year, I think it's at a 6-year
low on unemployment.
6-year low on unemployment, and is rapidly growing in the jobs, which is kind of remarkable. Is the jobs are well-paying jobs. I think the average is between $17 to $20 per hour for candidates, and that's down in Colorado, which is a little bit different than what it is.
Well, if you look at, I look at just running a simple calculation, their population versus ours. We have about 13% of the population in Colorado. They get some spillover from the neighboring states for cannabis tourism, but if you just take the straight numbers, it would create about 1,500 jobs in Alaska right away, directly related to the cannabis industry, and then all of the ancillary businesses that go, who aren't in the business but provide services to those businesses, it'll be probably 5 times that. So it could impact between 5,000 jobs, again, 1,500 of which wouldn't have existed, or at least only existed under the table, which is never a good idea.
And one of the other things too is, when you ban, you've got kind of 2 sides to this. You got the retail, or you got the sales, the tax, excise tax, whatever, $50 an ounce tax. That will be specifically the burden of the cultivators and the growers. So if you're looking specifically for what is the municipality and the borough going to get out of this, just one thing I've been found out, maybe when somebody from the borough or something or the municipality kind of enlighten us, is whether they would then get some sort of share of that, or share based upon what they're bringing in. I would imagine that would be something like that. But to give you an idea, the borough sales tax per ounce would be about roughly $23.81. That's based upon a $14 per gram average, and that's what they're basically kind of using as a standard.
12,000 something.
Yeah, 12,800. And what you're seeing is in a lot of these little niches is it's just standard economics. When you have great demand and small supply, you see $45 grams, $30 grams. And then once you see floods like they just had in Washington, they just had a glut of supply come in, even though it's restricted a little bit by the amount of retail that's open, you see it just drop. And that's what also happening in Colorado. And that's what will happen here. It will go from this projected 14, I project it's probably going to be more. I think it's probably going to be quite a bit more depending on how restricted this environment is. It'll go from 14 to 12 to 10, and it'll come down, and it's already happening within 18 months in Colorado, and it's happening already in Washington.
And I think what we have to realize is Alaska is its own ecosystem, and the Fairbanks North Star Borough is embracing this quite heartily. Their vote is strongly in favor of it, so they will clean our clock
and that's another kind of important part of this, is when you've got, creating a moratorium in any area, that is being restricted, that places restrictions against, any economic enterprise, but then allowing in other regions is you're just kind of bootstrapping and holding down the people in that area. So when it does come time to engage in enterprise commerce, where you're already behind the eight ball, where people, that are able to then get their business models working and start, and they start doing their thing, they're going to be in a lot better spot than all the people that say, like Juneau, they have a year or two moratorium where nobody's able to do anything or have any sort of enterprise, and all of a sudden, you got people in other areas that have had successful models, they'll be in a better position to then go into those other areas and compete. And that's one of the major big things here for the state of Alaska too, and I think one of the big things that I get more than any one thing, and I fall right into it as well, is other institutions coming up, and they're waiting. I mean, they're all waiting. Other outside institutions coming up and being able to just come up and implement their models, because they've been doing it. People have been doing it 10, 20 years. They know what they're doing. They don't have to relearn all this stuff. They don't have to stumble. They're going to hit the ground running with mega complexes. So that's kind of really important that it's, from Alaska, by Alaska, and that we're doing this at the state, we're running our own model, based upon our own kind of reality.
And that's what one of the Fairbanks Mayor, Luke Hopkins, he's a Fairbanks North Star Borough Mayor, he said that their real estate market, the realtors, are getting hit hard, mostly by people from outside Alaska. So I think the real estate industry and the people who have warehouses and farmland, they're all going to be very effective. And the people, if they're all calling from out of town, we were down in Vegas and we saw how seriously they take this. They will come in and they will be able to compete in Alaska. We probably have some residency favoritism. They have to be careful how they build that in, but I think that they probably will, because that's politically popular, and it keeps it from growing too big too fast. And I think the go low, go slow is probably appropriate, and it makes people a little less hesitant. Some people won't be happy no matter how slow or how low.
And another real big issue, and what Eric talked about too, is with the native corporations and natives down in Little Forty. I don't think it up here. I don't think it doesn't apply in the same way. But down there, since they've allowed it to grow on native lands, there are several groups right now that are 30 million. They're going to be going at it. There's going to be certain reservations down there that are going to be going at it so incredibly hard that it's kind of hard to put into words. They're going to disturb state commerce simply because they're allowed to hit the ground running and start $100,000 square foot facilities with unlimited resources. And when Eric had mentioned Peter Thiel, I don't know if you know who Peter Thiel is. He's one of the big boys in Silicon Valley who started PayPal and sits on the board of Facebook and every major company in Silicon Valley. He's one of the biggest venture capitalists in the world. He just pumped in $3 billion into a fund that's going strictly to cannabis, which that leads me to believe they're so politically tied. They know the tide in Washington is turning. It's already a done deal, and I expect that in the next 12 months, 18 months to be no longer an issue. So you're seeing all these huge amounts of money that are in there, and you're going to start seeing enterprises scale and start the ground running. And
These are all things from just our last meeting.
It's moving so fast, it's hard to believe.
And also the night of our last meeting with the Anchorage Assembly vote to ban it, that lost 2-9. The guy who co-sponsored it voted against it. It went down in flames. And Amy Dembowski will never crawl back up into the political scene again, which is good. Again, I don't have a problem with lawmakers wanting to make this safe and palatable to everybody, but to ban it when you don't know what the regulations are going to look like, you're really operating in the dark, in a vacuum. So anyway, thanks, Mark. And we're going to turn it over now. Our local boy, Lee Abel, is the local affiliate for Coalition for Responsible Cannabis Legislation, CRCL. And you leave from born and raised here, right, Lee?
Yeah, all right.
Born and raised in Alaska, I operate a small farm and contracting company with my family in Ceylon.
And when that's funny you asked, because I had another guy who wanted me to join the Association for Cannabis something or other, it's a national thing, and I asked him, I'd like to come up and meet with you. He said, well, I'm actually in Washington. So when Lee contacted me, I told him that story, and I said, I just don't really want to have anything to do necessarily. And he laughed and said, I get the same feeling, I'm born and raised, and so the people that you're gonna meet are all local. Again, that doesn't mean you can't come in from outside, but it just makes you feel a little more comfortable knowing you're born and raised here as well. So I think he cares about the community and wants to make a buck like anybody else. Lee?
I was telling Eric earlier, Alaskans seem to have a very an intrinsic wish for everything to be local. And I said that's very normal because we're so far from the rest of the United States. Of course, we want to keep it all local. Like I said, I'm from Kasilov. My name is Lee Babel. I'm the Kenai Regional Director of the Coalition for Responsible Cannabis Legislation. It's a statewide group that formed about 2 years ago as a sister group to the campaign, which passed 13 PSUM, which is the official name of the initiative that we passed. It was originally started by a group of fellows up in Fairbanks with the intent of having a voice for people in the state of Alaska who wanted to get into this industry. Even 2 years ago, people who study this were seeing changes happen across the country. The Coalition for Responsible Cannabis Legislation has a little over 1,000 statewide members. You can find us at our website. The last slide is going to have contact information. You could write it down if you want. You can get on our website, join for free. We're here to give the citizens a voice, so anybody can join. You can donate as well. If you're interested in contributing, we all work for free. Our mission statement, we're dedicated to sensible marijuana regulations in Alaska. It's very simple. And as far as what exactly that means, all of our members get surveys, and that's how we carefully compile what we think the majority of Alaskans want, is by the surveys of our members. Our goal is to work closely with the Alaska Marijuana Control Board, or the ABC Board, whoever gets a hold of it, to enact cannabis regulations that serve the best interests of Alaskan people, the Alaskan economy, and consumer groups alike. One of my favorite things about this working with the CRCL and is going around and talking to all of you Alaskans. I travel around, I see a fair amount of citizens, and I talk to a fair amount of leaders, and that is my absolute favorite part of this whole thing. So first I'm going to cover some suggestions from citizens that I've got. Most of the citizens don't put it quite as politely as I'm going to, but I've rewritten some of their complaints in a maybe a little bit nicer of a way. I think that first one was actually, why don't they do their jobs or something like that. At any rate, we feel, and most of our members feel, that politicians should implement what the Alaskan people voted in instead of blocking it, and that means the full intent of the initiative, not picking it apart. Regulations should allow for mom and pop businesses. I've talked to a lot of people here on the peninsula who are deeply concerned about this. They want this to remain a cottage industry. We all know it's a black market cottage industry right now. And they don't want big marijuana to take over, and they want to be able to start a relatively low venture startup capital business. And they're worried that too many extensive regulations are going to preclude that. So it'd be nice if here in the state of Alaska, we could come to a balance somewhere so this could be local for small businesses. Every member I've spoken to of the CRCL wants this to be local. Every single one of them wants there to be a mandate that only Alaskan residents can get licenses. The standard is that you would have to be a resident for 2 years to apply for a license. That's our stance. That's not any law or anything yet. But we're going to work for that, since every single one of our members wants that. Reasonable operational environment. This is something our members are extremely concerned about. Initiatives like Mr. Wolf's creates a very unsafe environment for a business person. So if there's a business person who wants to plan a marijuana farm on the Kenai Peninsula to start up here in 14 months or so when they're going to be legal, they're probably not going to plan that if they have something here in the borough hanging over their head saying, oh, in October, we're all going to vote to kick you out. They're probably going to go up and buy some land in Fairbanks and then do the business up there. So that's a little bit of what I hear from the citizens. I've had some great conversations with leaders. I love our Alaskan leaders, and I've learned a lot from talking to them. So these are some of their main concerns. Some of their concerns I feel might be a little bit knee-jerk reactions. Of course, that's coming from a perspective where I've been looking at this information for most of my life, and a lot more of it in depth for the last couple of years. A lot of leaders are worried about THC concentrates. Mr. Seaton was pretty clear about that with House Bill 59. Mark covered that very well. If we preclude THC concentrates from this, we're going to be losing such a large market segment that the conversion rate's going to happen a lot slower, and we're just left with what we have right now. Majority of the voters asked for this. They asked for THC concentrates too. It's written right in the law. The safety of edibles is another concern I've heard here locally. All reasonable concerns, and I'd like to note here that all of these concerns are reasonable, especially coming from perspective of not knowing about it. So any concerns reasonable, any concerns legitimate. What I would like to see is all of us educating ourselves before we start writing bills to ban something that we don't fully understand yet. The last concern, zoning concerns. Local leaders have concerns about marijuana establishments in neighborhoods popping up all over the place. Obviously, the initiative is very clear that there is local control. We are going to do nothing but give up control by banning things here. If we go ahead and say we want them here and we don't want them down here, we don't want them with 100 foot of a school, reasonable things like this, then we have control over it. If we ban it, then it's all done somewhere else, and I'm pretty sure the marijuana will still be here, because I think it is already. So there's a lot of solutions to these problems. I am very solution-oriented. I love talking to leaders about solutions when I'm given the opportunity. Some of them haven't really given me that opportunity recently, and I wish they would talk to me. If we're worried about the strength of something, let's do it like we do alcohol or any other pharmaceutical. Let's put the strength on the label. Let's test them. These are standard procedures that are being done in other states already, so we're not even reinventing the wheel here. We're just having to try to work out how Alaska wants to approach these rules. Packaging, child-proof packaging, wonderful idea. I think that's great, and I think that would help a lot with some people's concerns. If we label this stuff right, hopefully people will read the label and they won't eat so much that they get freaked out. Which is, by the way, is pretty much all that happens. From the research that I've done, doctors don't actually say you can OD on marijuana. People will eat too much and say they're ODing, and in reality, they're not actually in danger of dying. They just think they are. Dosing recommendations. I think if we put dosing recommendations on the edibles, this is a huge concern that people have. If we put dosing recommendations on them, especially for new consumers, I think this would help a lot, especially if we're already testing them in the beginning, then we know what's in there. Education and transparency. If we get the highest conversion rate we can here in year one, let's try to beat all the other states and get the highest conversion rate from black to legitimate market in year one we can. Then we have the highest transparency in the industry. Everyone's going to be able to see how this is being made. Everybody can see how dangerous it is or not dangerous. And we also get the safety byproduct of the fact that the more of the extractions that are done in facilities, the more that they're being overseen, just like when lavender is extracted and manufactured somewhere else, because it's essentially the same process. Mark really covered conversion rate really well, so I'm probably gonna skip over this pretty quick. You know, the MPG estimates that right now there's a 200 million, yes, that's right, yeah, $200 million a year black market currently here in the state. I, for one, would like to see the largest percentage of that go to legitimate market as soon as possible, and I think that's how we achieve the most safety in this new industry. This goes along, this is very important for conversion, for the conversion rate. There's been studies done by several accountants. Our own CRCL accountant tore this apart. His recommendation is not to go over a 15% effective tax rate. He thinks that's the magic number. If we go over that, we have a significant decline in the rate of conversion. Colorado and Washington both went over that. Colorado is way better off than Washington. You can see our accountant, he calculated this for me. Personally, I don't know how to make those numbers add up to 29% in Colorado's row there. But that's the effective tax rate is all those added up. As you can see, it's a lot better than Washington's. Well, Colorado is showing they have a higher conversion rate than Washington. So let's all try to, you know, if the borough needs to make some money, if the city needs to make some money, if the state needs to make some money, that's fine. Let's make this combined effective tax rate under the amount that's going to allow the largest amount of conversion, because I do believe that leads to safety. This is more on conversion rate. I'm really going to skip through this. We've been talking about this for a long time now. Other than effective tax rate, let's keep municipal, let's include all products in the market. This is going to up the conversion rate. Let's make reasonable regulations, because if a business cannot operate reasonably, they're not going to, and it's going to stay on the black market. That directly affects conversion. Look at there. All right, there's our contact information. We do have Facebook. There's some lively discussions at times. We love getting input from everybody. The more members that we have sign up online, the better it is. When we go to talk to politicians, they really like to hear how many people we're supporting or are being representing. And it also gives you a voice. And you'll get our emails and updates and surveys if you sign up. Like I said, it's free. And then you can also email us at crcl13psun@gmail.com. That's also the contact email on the website, so you can do it either way. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can put attention Kenai Regional Director. And I check that email once a day, along with all of my other duties. Lastly, I would like to say, we're here to work with everybody. We're all Alaskans. Like I said, I was born and raised here. I want to work with all of you to get this right the first time, so that 2 years down the road, we're not looking at more bills trying to correct mistakes we made now. Once again, I think the conversion rate is one of the most important factors here. And I think that including and following the intent of the initiative that the majority of the Alaskan voters asked for is extremely important, and that's what our leaders should be doing. I'm going to encourage them to do so. Thanks for listening to me tonight, you guys.
The one thing too to keep in mind with this conversion rate, just like any business, when we start out, let's say that we've got some enterprises starting out, there's going to be learning curves and challenges. So that first year is going to have it's going to be where the margins are going to be the kind of the highest. Where if we can get that price down and those margins down, based upon our experience in this industry, and as well as regulatory kind of tax obstacles, we can really try to get that conversion rate up.
All right. We're also going to have a second presentation from a local woman who's trying to get a group of women who are interested in the industry to collaborate together, come up with good ideas. I think it's a great idea all by itself. And this is Dolly Phelps.
Hi there, guys. So actually, am I in the way at all? I had started a chapter in my orientation, a national group, Women Grow, and apparently at their last board meeting, they decided they didn't have the resources to support a rural area like ours. So that's not to say that a new group won't be formed, maybe a different avenue, but we'll just see what happens there. Anybody be able to put that in your phone? Oh. Okay, so first of all, we're going to deal with the new face of cannabis. Oh, where's my clicker?
This is the forward button. That'll just walk you right through it.
Okay. So success in Colorado. In the past year, Colorado has experienced pitfalls along the way, but all in all had a very successful year in the cannabis industry. Legislation even passed a bill creating marijuana-specific financial institutions. Let's explore some of the facts. It's all kinds of crime that has decreased, and not even all dispensaries were able to be up and running in Denver since January 1st due to regulatory hurdles and licensing issues still being sorted out. Property crime is down 14.6%. Violent crime is down 2.4%. It certainly doesn't look like what opponents of Amendment 64 would have liked everyone to believe, that the streets would be full of violent hooligans and legalizing cannabis would make the devil creep the streets of Denver. Guess what happens when marijuana is legalized? Not only do you not have to steal it, but it also makes your state tons of cash while dropping crime rates in every conceivable fashion. At least that's what some stats are showing. Even though many Denver city officials, including Mayor Michael Hancock, fought cannabis legalization tooth and nail, saying it would cause increases in petty crimes and even sexual assault, just 3 months after Colorado's voters helped pass the legalization of marijuana, Denver is enjoying a 14.6% decrease in crime from the same time last year. 8 months since becoming the first U.S. state to legalize recreational cannabis, Colorado is seeing record high sales. According to the latest figures from the Colorado Department of Revenue, recreational sales totaled around $34.1 million in August, up from $29.3 million in July. In total, Colorado has collected $45,200,000 in revenue in the first 8 months after legalization, and almost $60 million during the course of the year. How many schools or treatment centers can that fund? Other states have experienced similar results. As of May 1st, 2014, Colorado has licensed 200 retail dispensaries throughout the state and 10,043 individuals to work in the industry. That does not even include jobs created in collateral sectors such as construction, law, accounting, and tourism. More than 1,000 people lined up on a blustery March day in Denver to participate in Cannabis Job Day. With the legalization of cannabis, it's not just the actual growing and selling of marijuana that brings in revenue and jobs. Legal cannabis is an entire industry requiring support staff and regulators as well. There are a multitude of opportunities in just about every function you can imagine. They are becoming mainstream and available as the industry develops. Some are lucrative, others might pay low wages, but the industry is in its infancy, and as it evolves, as will positions within it. These are some of the ancillary businesses here. Edible products, concentrates processor, delivery, security, testing and analysis, processors, tourism, regulators, we all know who they are, web and software, retail shop owners, and farmers. So some people are concerned with visible cultivation facilities popping up, but they really aren't that scary. Which one of these is a cultivation facility?
Both.
So these are some folks that are actively working in the cannabis industry. Jane West from Edible Events. Jane West, co-founder of Women Grow, was named one of 13 leading women in the cannabis industry by Elle magazine. She joined Senator Diane Savino and Dr. Lakeisha Jenkins on the list. Denver-based party planner Jane West, owner of Edible Events, has been throwing parties for years. As the adult legalized marijuana market takes shape, she's hosted a series of cannabis food parties, one of which was held at an art gallery. She has created a tasting menu specifically designed to pair with marijuana consumption. To be clear, the food will not include cannabis as an ingredient due to state regulations. Guests are invited to BYOC. West has partnered with Uber, which lets consumers connect with drivers using a mobile app. Party rules do prohibit guests from driving themselves. Tony Fox is founding benefactor of Women Grow and named Inspiring Woman of the Year at the Cannabis Industry Awards. She is the owner of 3D Cannabis Center, a medical marijuana center in Denver, Colorado. They've been operating for 3 years as a medical facility that was originally 10,000 square feet. They recently expanded and added another 8,000 square foot, and they're preparing for retail marijuana sales in January.
We tried to put this up a few days ago, but people just kept knocking there. We couldn't get any work done, so we're waiting until the last minute. It's taken about 4 months from start to finish, and we figure that we've spent about $200,000 on this location and the expansion currently, but everybody's so happy to have us in this community. They're grateful for the jobs, they're grateful for the tourist dollars, the tax dollars. We're excited to open this facility, and I'm very proud that we've come this far.
I got my bachelor's in marketing. I've learned very well how to take a person, speak to them for 5 minutes, and be able to really help them with what they need. Every class I took, I used. We have your pre-roll joints, and they are robust. They're 48 for tax.
I think the same way my father came at it with me. He sat me down and he said anything, drugs, alcohol, sex even, if it's not done correctly or safely, can be damaging and harmful. I would be a hypocrite if I was to tell my daughter not to do it and it was bad and horrible. And I don't think hypocrisy is a way to raise a child.
I have a good question. But, 2 lessons that I heard. So my son is very aware that we drink wine with dinner, and he's very aware that occasionally I enjoy cannabis with my friends, and occasionally when they're over, they'll be using cannabis as well, and that it's something that is for adults. And much like alcohol, marijuana is not for him right now, and that when he's old enough, he'll be able to make the choice as to whether or not he's going to enjoy that substance. Thank you.
It's really about positive parenting, good role models, showing moderate use and healthy use, and being open with your kids as well. It's so nice out there. River, my 4-year-old, smelled a flower the other day, and he said, "That smells like cannabis, Mommy." And I thought, if that was Cheyenne 15 years ago, I would have been terrified because she would have known what cannabis smelled like. But I was so proud because my kid was calling it cannabis.
Hang on.
We were right.
I picked it out when I had to go out there.
Moving on. Okay, Colorado's grand experiment is nothing short of an economic, political, social, and medical revolution. That realization, as well as my company's role in it, is something I regularly reflect on. I've been in the cannabis industry for 5 years now. Family and friends have initially considered my career choice to be an odd, perhaps risky move. Julie Dooley is an organic baker and owner of Julie's Baked Goods, applying her healthy approach to THC infused edibles. Julie whips up granolas, seed mixes, clarified canna butters, canna coconut oil, and her extremely popular Nutty Bite, a cluster of almonds and sunflower seeds tossed together in a maple syrup blend. After being diagnosed with celiac disease, Julie found that she continued to suffer with symptoms even after eliminating gluten from her diet. For Julie, a mother of 3, cannabis was the best way for her to manage those symptoms, but she wanted to find a healthier way to consume it. This was the inspiration for Julie's Baked Goods, a gluten-free, refined sugar-free, pesticide-free, and non-GMO bakery. Pete Williams, the COO of Medicine Man, is the heart of the operation, a man who got into medical marijuana to help others. His brother Andy participates in the business as well. Pete can be evangelical about the benefits of marijuana and is a master grower himself. This dual leadership provides the company with a balance that other dispensaries just don't have. The result is that Medicine Man has the most variety, up to 72 different strains, and some of the lowest prices in Colorado. A family-based and run company that is looking forward to providing quality, locally grown cannabis to Alaska residents. They have started 2 businesses that are highly regulated by the state and Anchorage over the last couple of years. This means they are no strangers to the state of Alaska's licensing and certification process. They look forward to producing a product that has been proven to rank in the top 3% in the country. Kim Cole is an educator in Anchorage, Alaska, who is the chair of the Alaska chapter of Women Grow. She updates members on what's currently going on in the state in terms of the regulatory process. The main emphasis is to educate women and men about how to best be prepared and therefore most successful in opening a business in the cannabis industry. Kim Cole has just become the Alaska state representative for the Cannabis Training Institute. They are in the middle of the 3-year process of becoming an accredited online university. Lastly, Kim is an active member of the Coalition for Responsible Cannabis Legislation. This is a group that looks to bring everyone from all over the state together so we can present a unified front to influence the forming of state marijuana regulation. There were no 10-foot bongs, dab bars, or hat pins at Colorado's annual business awards in Denver this past December. In the place of traditional cannabis carnival affair, there was a red carpet, bow ties, hot appetizers, and an industry bonding together to celebrate a very historic year. Medical. So these are just some of the things that cannabis can treat. You know, we can't read them all quickly, but they are there, and the list goes on. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Anecdotal evidence says, by and large, the use of therapeutic cannabis provides a significant improvement in quality of life, both for those suffering from PTSD and for their family and friends. Oftentimes, pharmaceutical drugs offer little to no relief, when cannabis concentrates can actually mask the traumatic memories that haunt so many. For some severe cases, it is actually life and death. A new survey from the National Pain Foundation suggests medical marijuana may top currently available pharmaceuticals for treating fibromyalgia. I found nothing that has worked for me apart from marijuana, explained one patient. Nothing but medical marijuana has made the greatest dent in the pain and mental problems, said another. As early as the 80s, cannabinoids have been shown to alleviate dystonia, dyskinesia, and akinesia, all of them motor symptoms which have been known to impact certain Parkinson's patients. For instance, controlled doses of cannabinoids have been able to reduce dyskinesia in patients suffering from Parkinson's disease or Parkinsonism for years by 30%. Incidentally, medicinal cannabis as well as cannabis extract-based medications are already being used to treat general spasticity in the context of other conditions, such as multiple sclerosis or Tourette syndrome. Charlotte, Fiji, now 8, has Dravet syndrome, a rare severe form of epilepsy. Doctors tried everything they could to think of to get her 300 daily seizures to stop, but nothing worked. The family decided to try a special type of medical marijuana, low in THC, later named Charlotte's Web. Her parents say Charlotte is now thriving and seizures have been reduced from 300 a day to 1 a day. And lastly, cancer treatment. A pair of scientists at California Medical Center in San Francisco has found that a compound derived from marijuana could stop metastasis in many kinds of aggressive cancer, potentially altering the fatality of the disease forever. Cannabinoids actually do kill cancer cells through a process called apoptosis. That's it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. And if other people have organizations or things they'd like to present to the group, please just get a hold of me by email. And now, if we're doing just right on time, we were hoping to have a few of our lawmakers who are willing to, if not, come up here and sit and take a few questions. We won't make a big deal out of it, but since we're right about here, if we do 10 minutes of Q&A with our local lawmakers. I know we have the Mr. Navarre here, Terry Bookie's here, Mayor Porter's here. I'm not sure who all made it, but if you're willing to take a few questions, again, please don't put them on the spot, but if you have a question to ask them, something related to this industry, that'd be great.
And it can also be more in general too, to the group.
I'm gonna start with Mayor Navarre. If you could explain how because I've never really cared, honestly, about how the borough ordinance process works. But if you can tell us how it functions procedurally, give us an idea of when to show up and as opposed to not show up.
Procedurally, ordinances are usually put on a consent agenda, which would mean that you would testify or present your comments when the consent agenda is before the assembly. However, if a single assembly member objects, and I expect there will be more than one who object, then it's pulled off the consent agenda and it goes on the regular agenda, and it will come up under regular items before the assembly
On the same evening?
on the same evening. But it's not up for passage, it's just up for introduction, and you can comment on whether it should in fact be introduced at this stage. And then if it is introduced, then it's also set for public hearing. If it's not introduced, then it's just dead for now. If it is introduced, then it's set for public hearing. And I think it's scheduled for February 24th.
I received an email from Kelly Wolf today, and he said he was gonna put it off for the first meeting in March because one of his constituents who was against his idea wasn't able to be there, so he was going to defer to the first meeting in March. But would that still pick up the topic tomorrow night?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's just when it would be scheduled for public hearing.
Okay. And maybe Mayor Porter or Tim Navarre, how is the process different in the Kenai City Council? I don't think there's anything pending for you guys, but just how would we know if it was coming up so that we would have forewarning? If you want to, we've got 2 mics.
And Mako Haggerty is here also
Thank
from
you.
the Assembly.
I'm just curious how it works in different forums.
In the city, when an ordinance is presented, it takes 2 meetings to have an ordinance enacted upon. And usually it's just on the consent agenda for the first one, but it can be pulled off and discussed at that time. And then at the following meeting, it would then be discussed and voted on. However, we can and have in the past delayed action and offered another public hearing. For 1 or 2 meetings, it didn't matter. It just depends on how much public we have that's interested in it, and so it just depends. We have the flexibility to be able to delay a vote, even though it should have happened on the second by just delaying it for another public hearing.
Can people who aren't United City residents come and ask questions or give comments?
Oh, absolutely. Our meetings are open to the general public, and lots of times we have people from the public that are not citizens of our town who testify.
Could you explain the consent agenda thing again? I don't understand what that means.
Well, the consent agenda just means usually on our when an ordinance is introduced, that's what it is. It's an introduction, and so we usually have it on our consent agenda, meaning we just sort of it's being introduced, but we're passing over it. Okay, we're just not discussing it. However, it can be pulled off of the consent agenda and discussed as well. So you have plenty of opportunity. You would then have that opportunity to council wouldn't take any action on it. It would then be heard and acted upon at the following meeting. But then keep in mind, we try to be really flexible and listen to our citizens, so therefore we could have another public hearing and play it again.
Thank you. I just was wondering that, I didn't want to miss anything, and I don't know how to sit through a 4-hour meeting or whatever, sometimes they're long. I didn't want to leave early and miss something important, so this is
Well, you're
obviously,
limited in time, you know, you only get a certain amount of time.
okay.
Yeah, if it's pulled off the consent agenda, it takes a majority of the assembly or the council to introduce it.
So is it the case that if it's pulled off the consent agenda with one objection, it might never be introduced because they don't have, however, is it 5 votes to get it on the borough regular agenda? If it never makes the borough regular agenda, the vote would never be put to the people as.
Correct.
Okay, okay. And, I mean, how much impact would people showing up on both sides of the aisle matter? I mean, the snippet of the community, you got 59,000, 60,000 people, you know, 100 show up, that looks like a lot, but it's a tiny sliver of people in the big picture. Does that influence you guys in any way? Tim?
I just want to say public information is always important. But keep in mind that we also, as a number of you have called and that, so we're talking to us personally. So there's all of that information that goes into our decision making. But anytime you get the opportunity and you feel passionate about an issue or against, you should take the opportunity at that time to let your involve yourself in the public process. It helps those that are elected to do that job and to find a balance, much easier to make sure they're hearing from everybody.
And Mr. Tim Navar, can you explain to us the difference between a general rule city and a home rule city? I think those are those the two different things they call them? General law and home rule? I mean, Kenai
It's
is
a first class, borough is a second class borough. We're
but
first
Kenai
class.
is a home rule city, right?
Correct.
Seward and Kenai are the only two.
Correct.
Okay. And Kelly Wolf's proposal doesn't touch the city anyway, so are you guys gonna discuss that at all? Or do you have to get a certain way through the process before you discuss it?
Well, since it doesn't affect us, we should, you know, whether we agree or disagree with what the legislation is doing. If it was going to affect us, then we probably would weigh in. But otherwise, as a city body, we're not taking any action, and it's probably not necessary.
Excellent. Mr. Haggerty, is that right?
I'm on the assembly, I represent,
How do you pronounce your first name?
Marco.
Mako.
Yeah.
I saw you at the last meeting that we went to, and what's your district?
I represent District 9, which is basically everything around Homer, on the outside of Homer.
Okay.
So Anchor Point, all the way to South Groby, and includes the Russian communities out on East Road, and Port Graham and Wallach.
Didn't Homer, as far as the peninsula vote, come down pretty favorably for the Prop 2?
Yes.
Okay, what are your thoughts on the process and the wait and see approach versus let's do something now? Where do you fall in that spectrum?
Well, I think we should start working towards it right now.
Working towards what? Implementing the law? as the voters?
Implementing the law.
Okay. And what are your thoughts? What are you hearing from constituents, their concerns?
I'm not hearing a whole lot from my constituents. I haven't actually gone out to them, and I think, you know, the question was, how much influence does a testimony at an assembly meeting make? I would like to think that I've represented my district well. Whether or not, I always listen to input at the assembly meeting, always. And, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily affect which way I'm gonna vote, because I'm trying to represent my district primarily, and then the greater borough after that. So I think that's represent my district fairly well.
And we have basically the growers, the producers, the retail stores, and then there'll be some lab testing. Do you see any reason to ban any of those 4 subgroups at this time on the entire peninsula yet?
No.
Okay.
You know, Eric, I just want to say that if you do plan on coming tomorrow night, and Marco, maybe you could let us know whether you're going to object, or know whether it's going to be on the consent agenda or not.
Yeah, I'll be objecting to it.
Does that mean you can show up?
I hope I'm not the only one.
No, and for but it only takes one, and then it gets pulled off the consent agenda. So then there will be a public hearing tomorrow night, it'll be on a regular place in the agenda, so assembly meeting starts at 6. Preliminaries and everything like that will probably take 20 minutes. And at that point, somewhere, I don't know exactly where it will fall in the agenda, but it will then be up for public hearing. I just want to caution folks, don't attack the whole assembly or attempt to ban it at this point, because could turn some members off. You know, talk about why there should be a waiting period. I mean, the vote just passed 2 months ago. The state regs and the legislation really haven't even been put in place yet to implement it, and so it really is a bit premature. And I think that should be the overriding message to the assembly, rather than attacking politicians, which I know is popular all throughout the country. But give it a chance.
I think you're right. We have a lot to learn between now and the time this goes into effect. It's going into effect somewhere. I can't remember, I'm pretty sure how many boroughs, I don't know like how many we have in Alaska, but it's gonna happen somewhere, so we will have some access to it, but it's too early to know. And you agree that the statute gives the possibility for local control on a more targeted perspective than ban from every square mile.
Yes, I think that it does, and I also know that banning it doesn't stop it and doesn't keep it out of the community. So.
Okay, and I hate to, I'm always monopolizing time. This is a chance for other folks if you want to come up, and it'd be great if you could come up, and it's not always easy to talk into the mic, but if you want to come ask a few questions, we've got a few more minutes, and then I'm going to make some final comments.
I just wanted to ask, did any of the local borough people or local politicians get a chance to go down to Colorado and meet with the Sheriff's Association down there? I know there's a lot of Alaskan legislators, politicians, et cetera, that did go down there. Did anybody?
I thought Gus might have gone. I saw you come through. Beautiful. I didn't realize until it was going, when the news was doing their thing, that they weren't even allowed. I didn't realize it was restricted and who was allowed to come in. But again, I think they're a good group to hear from. I read their materials leading up to it. It was really heavily biased, not that I'm not as well, but it was biased the other way. And then I didn't realize you had to have a special green card to get in. And so I'd love to hear what Mr. Sandoval had to say. They only wanted a certain element. It was basically prosecutors and lawmakers and police and district attorneys. It was very anti-drug. Here's what we've learned about how bad it is so far. They might as well just call it that. When you read about, when they call it stone driving in the materials, it tells you where they're going with that. So, but I'm very interested to know. I'd love to see the materials that they gave out. Hopefully they're not copyrighted or protected by a confidentiality agreement. And they have plenty of stuff to add to this debate, but it was, I think, sponsored by, at least in part by SAM, Smarter Approaches to Medicine. It's really run by a guy who owns, first of all, Kennedy back east, who has a drug and alcohol problem. The guy ran into the White House, or into the Capitol, his car, and got away with it. Him and a guy in Colorado who owns a bunch of treatment centers. So there's that.
You know, I think it's important to keep in mind also that while it did pass statewide, it failed by a very slim margin on the Kenai Peninsula. However, if you dial inside those numbers, it passed in more precincts than it actually did.
Well, and it was a different question. The question was whether to tax and regulate like cannabis. Now the question is, since we passed it by over 6%, should we ban it and get no economic benefit from it, only in our small borough? So I think it's a different question that people will come at from a different angle. Some people still be against it, but I think when you pose it and frame it in a different way, the numbers might not be the same. And it's a pretty red election, you gotta say. We got rid of our governor and our Democratic senator. And it got more votes than any other candidate. Judge Stowers got more votes than mine. So other than him.
Yes, okay, my question is more on legislators doing what people have. And though you pointed out that on the Kenai Peninsula by a very slim margin, I'd like to go back to and I don't know the name of the proposal or piece of legislation, but on the car tax thing, you know, now, correct me if I'm wrong, did that not pass in the state of Alaska? And what kind of a margin did it pass with on the Kenai Peninsula? My understanding is even though it passed, they're saying opting out because you want the tax money from, the tax, or the license.
You know,
So
that-
why not take the tax money from the marijuana sale?
You know, I'm fine with taking tax money from marijuana.
Okay.
But you're confusing the subject. What happened in the legislature was that the legislature, there was no vote. The legislature made it an option for local governments, if they wanted to reduce the tax to make a permanent licensure for older vehicles.
Correct.
They did, they passed that, and that's an option. Now, the borough could exercise that option. But whenever you cut taxes in one area, it means a tax shift to someplace else or a cut in one of the programs that are functioning at the borough. And that's why it's an option rather than a mandate. If they mandated that we had to do it, then we wouldn't have any choice. And we are going to face a lot of fiscally difficult issues over the next couple of years at the state level, and the impact because of all the support we get from the state at the local level too. So we've got some tough things.
Kind of pivoting off this point, is it going to be, do you think the money will be shared with the localities where the money is produced, similar to fishing, or do we know that yet?
We don't know that yet.
Okay. In other words, if there wasn't a single dollar of cultivation permit, a single dollar of tax from the $50 an ounce tax, would the peninsula get any of the tax benefits if we aren't giving our fair share? In fact, none of the share.
You know, it's impossible to say at this point. I would say what you're suggesting is likely to happen, but who knows?
Okay. Right, there's no question we get sales tax, but not if we don't have any sales.
Okay, but one thing you do have a good handle on is the changes from the state. I would anticipate there's gonna be major fundamental changes starting this year, kind of over the next 5 to 6 years, and how we handle it, because of the savings plan.
Without question. We've been through this before though, you know, and price of oil goes up and down,
But
and
then
so
we
that
had
production.
2 wars for 10 years that kept the price of oil at $89, $100 a barrel. Sort of a war.
Sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong on predictions about what's gonna happen with oil revenue, but the reality is that we have time, and I attended the Mead Alaska conference last year, and new Commissioner Revenue, Randy Hoffbeck, talked about what he felt Governor Walker and his administration's approach would be, and this is kind of off the subject, although marijuana could provide, sales of cannabis could provide some revenues to the state, it's not gonna fill in the gap, and so there's going to be some tough decisions, but the fortunate thing is that we have a lot of reserves in this state. We don't need to overreact to either cannabis legalization or to the fiscal crisis. We can deal with it responsibly.
It's a good point, and we've never tried to suggest that we can possibly fill that gap. It's a drop in the bucket in a sense, but nobody's gonna turn away $7 million, and all of that money can do a lot of good when it is mostly going to tax-free sales now that nobody's reporting on their income. So, other questions for our guest?
Just a comment. It's going to be very, very important. It's going to be very, very important to watch what the legislature does, because that's where all of the regulations are really going to come from. And so I think we need to watch that. And because even if there was a sort of like a fish tax that you talked, it could be designated for something. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's going into a general fund. So I think it's just prudent for everybody to really watch what our legislators are going to do and not be afraid to talk to them.
I think that brings up another point, which I didn't ever think of this argument, but the person, one of the anchored assembly members who shot it down 92 in 9, said if we ban it now, we won't be part of the conversation in Juneau about how these laws should take shape. And I think we have to consider that down here as well. If you want to be in at the table talking about it, you have to be in the game. Get in the ring, otherwise you won't be. Marco, who you got back there?
Goes on to the same thing, but has anybody in the room or on the political end thought about industrial hemp and how it would play into that? Is that anybody's mind?
I've heard there's a proposed law going to it. I think the new term is agricultural hemp, we were told in Vegas we should be using because it more reflects what it's really about. I think even in states that don't have any marijuana laws, like Kentucky, the head of the Senate, it it looks like Mitch McConnell wants to push his state into it because it's so extremely profitable and can bring farmers out of, bankruptcy. They do it in every developed country except ours. It's hardly even a cousin to the marijuana that gets used recreationally or medically, and can be turned into so many things. Alaska will definitely deal with that this legislative session. It doesn't mention it much in the statute, but by implication, if it's a low CB or a low THC, high CBD power plants used for production of so many, many things, just can't think that it won't be a big part of it. I don't know if there'll be legislation passed directly on it, but I know there is some that's already being introduced, if I'm not wrong. I think it's been pre-filed.
Yeah, kind of for a question for you, and maybe the other guy that talked for the Coalition for Responsible Cannabis Use. Are you guys keeping track of these politicians and the way they're voting so it's readily available for the rest of us on election days?
We will, it's hard to do. I can tell you that our local lawmakers have been extremely engaged. I'm so impressed. I always bitched and moaned about politicians because I probably didn't know much about it. Like people bitch about me as a defense lawyer, they don't really know a whole lot of us. And you get to know us, you might find some respect for what we do. I've been really, really impressed by the local people and the way they call me and the questions they're asking. It seems like they're basically saying, people are asking me these questions, what are your answers to help give them ammunition, as it were, to help them do their job easier. So we will keep track. There hasn't been anything voted on yet, and not a whole lot of people will come out and say, we're against it completely. The few people we can glean it from are like Bob Lynn and Amy Dembowski, people who are so against it, there's nothing you can cut. They're not keeping an open mind. They don't care what the regulations look like. It's all bad all the time. So those are easy to pin. But the people who we don't know how they'll feel, as soon as they start voting, we will know and we will keep track. We only have a few local legislators, but so far all of them have been engaged. And I think all of them have kept an open mind. None of them are completely on our side or completely against it, at least that they've been willing to tip a hand on. And if they asked me to keep quiet, I wouldn't tell you anyway, but I'm not in the pipeline. Somebody cares about me. But the local people who keep track of them have been really engaged, and I'm simply blown away.
I would second that as well. Both Eric and I haven't had as much experience on this local grassroots. We'd rather be doing other things. And that's the one thing that struck me above anything else. Number one, of how complicated and time intensive the local assembly and council members' jobs are. They're not paid very much of anything to do this. And it's time intensive as hell, and they're never on the, there's always another side that they're kind of probably getting somebody upset about. And they've been really open to this. And I think the biggest thing that I think the public needs to really get through their heads is, in order to make things happen, you really have to do what we're doing here, and you really have to go at it. Otherwise, just bitching to your friends and taking that angle, nothing gets solved. And that's the reason why Eric and I did this, is to create a solution for our community rather than just bitch about it.
Yes, that being understood that they're all listening and everything, I would like to track records of the report card.
The CRCL does give member updates, both in email and on the Facebook, and we do keep very good track.
And also too, just even to add that to it, whereas kind of what angle you're talking about and what we come out with, there's been Kelly Wolf to be the example where we've come out pretty full force against that. And that is its own kind of isolated example. We don't get so worked up, and we're not there ready to just kind of come at you with venom if you're there being critical and you're there being reasonable. And unfortunately, I think there are select local legislators that have been very uncritical and very knee-jerk, and that's where.
I would also like to know the ones that are supportive on the other hand also. There's a lot of key issues that people are going to vote on, I think, this way, so don't care about the rest of the politics.
I think there's a lot of variables that need to be balanced, and it's a giant gap between us that have context and the people that don't have context. They still see us as this, and people are going to drive off crazy, and it's going to be, everything's going to be horrible. And it's that lack of context that drives this perceived gap.
So in response to you, there's been a survey, 4-question survey sent out to all of our assembly members. I received 2 responses back. both positive and waiting for the rest. And I'll be sharing that information with Mark and with Leaf. So I'm sure on Leaf's CRCL website it'll be available.
I can tell you that the first one I got back, Belly and I talked about doing that, and she sent them out. And Mako there with the microphone sent one back, and it was just no BS. I'm for this, I'm for implementing the will of the people. And he didn't hide the ball or say like Hillary Clinton still has not announced she's running yet. She has a website, but I hate this coy routine in America.
Kelly Cooper's the other.
Kelly Cooper, it sounds like, gave a positive response as well. So I know they have jobs to do, and I don't understand politics, so I'm completely naive about it. I like the non-coy, if there's a word for non-coy, the open version, but I understand if they can't commit yet and that they're keeping an open mind and need more information. The state regulations may be so exhaustive that we don't need a lot of local control. If the statute allows for it, you can create local regulatory authorities and get involved in time, place, and manner and license number restrictions. So I think those are more targeted than overall bans, which we know it just sends it right back to black, and we won't enjoy what the statute said is the point of all this, is to put it in a legitimate sphere, to divert police resources to where they belong, and to keep consumers informed and protected, and to enhance individual liberty. It's right in there. We've lost that a lot in Alaska. We've become a police state in so many respects, and they're tapping our phones and our emails as we speak, and maybe there's some value to that, but I don't think so. I like living up here because I want a level of privacy unattainable in the other states, at least I thought that it was. And I don't want to have to move to Colorado or Washington to get more liberty. I live in rural, remote Alaska, and I think all of us stay or come here for that reason. We like to be left alone, but we still have to have common sense rules. We need laws. We can't have anarchy. But I think there's reasonable solutions to a lot of these legitimate concerns. I have loved ones out on the road too, so I don't want crazy people hurting anybody. So
Eric, I just want to assure you the Kenai Peninsula Borough is not tapping your phones or checking your email.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I've got a comment. I'd like to thank the elected officials for showing up and listening to the people. And I'd like to thank you fellows for coming up here and trying to educate everyone about what's happening. And this is definitely going to have to be something that's regulated. And it sounds like a lot of the elected officials are on board to get it regulated. So thank you.
I couldn't be happier to be doing it. Lifelong passion, as it were. I've never made any bones about that. I don't think we should be judging people by what they choose to do during their recreational time. You know, character really is about what you do when nobody's watching. So I try to run my life that way. And the people that I've met in this subculture are, by and large, some pretty amazing people that have a lot to offer. We're just a little bit different. We're a little outside the mainstream, but we like being there. And again, I said last time, I'm kind of going to miss that part of this, where I was able to meet friends where I wouldn't have met them before. So am I good at that? So, thank you. I'm glad to be doing it.
I have a question. What state was the first one to implement it? Was it Colorado? Or did Colorado and Washington implement it at the same time?
Almost simultaneously, but Colorado had a vibrant medical marijuana industry. They were able to hit the ground running. They had pre-done some regulations. So I think they got going earlier. Washington had some real problems with their legislation because you had to grow 75% of what you sold or something. So there was a huge shortage, so the black market took over. Then, like Mark said, there's now a glut because the pendulum has swung the other way. It'll settle itself out.
So there's lessons to be learned from both of those states.
Absolutely. Yeah, our legislators are looking a lot to what those, like, the meeting down in Colorado. All right, I'm done.
I just would like to make a comment. First of all, Eric, I want you to know I think you are beginning to sound like a politician. It's amusing. So you might want to consider running. Yeah, you might want to consider running for an office. I will be very honest with you. I did not support this legislation. However, that being said, the voters did. And so therefore, everybody's looking at me like, wow. I truly haven't. I've never even smoked cannabis in my whole life. The kids in school when I substitute don't believe me, but it's true. And But at the same time, the voters have decided that that's what they want to do. And so for myself, in my position as an elected official in Kenai, I want to make that, I want to listen to the people who live there. I want to make it as safe as possible for the children and for the environment that we live in. I'm not against it because that's what the voters wanted to do. But it's kind of like the two-stroke, four-stroke motor issue on the Kenai River. I didn't know anything about fishing motors at all until it happened. Then I had to get myself educated. And that's kind of what I need to do now is get myself up to, okay, it's probably going to become a reality. So how do we make it so I want to continue to live in my community and live with it, okay? And so I think when you talk to politicians, you're going to run into some who are probably like I am. And I think you need to just encourage them to try that. That's your goal as well, is to make it as not just a free for all where you see everybody standing and smoking cannabis. I'm trying to learn how to say that. On the corner to where it's, you know, it's an intrusion and a lot of people maybe don't like to smell it or be around it or have their kids around it. And you want those same safeguards. So, you know, just give them some assurance that you want to see safeguards put in place too, not just anybody does that. And I think you'll find if you approach it in that way, that you're going to get a lot better reception back and a lot better participation from legislators.
And for her credit, Mayor Porter was the first one in the paper saying, we're gonna have town meetings as well because we want to hear from the people before we decide what to do. That was the local reaction versus what happened in Anchorage, and that went down in flames. So I think we're the first one to create a community coalition. They're doing ones in, in the boroughs and listening tours and all these things, but they're controlled by the lawmakers. This is the first one that the people control, and I pretty much made it very clear, I'm letting you people decide how we want to run it. Because I'm here as a scrivener and as somebody to keep it moving because I'm interested in it. I've made myself clear what I believe about it, but keeping the open mind and the children and all of that, we all agree on those issues. We think that shutting it down completely is the worst possible thing. It hasn't ever worked. We have grow operations all over the neighborhood, and we have no idea where most of them are. Anyone that's found till now, that's they go in and they bust them. Now we're going to have very few, but larger operations. You'll know exactly where they are. They'll be zoned or at least buffer zones so that they won't get anywhere near anything that could be adversely affected. But hearing you say that, I could never be a politician because I'm not very politic. I'm way too blunt in what I say, and that doesn't go very well in politics. I think sometimes some people get away with it, but mostly you have to be very careful about everything you say, and I don't have to filter for it.
Eric, if I could do, I just, opposite of what Mayor Porter said, I actually voted for the legislation. But at the same time, just because people vote for the legislation, they vote for it for lots of reasons. And I can tell you that, one of my big was, not having, the court costs and the jail time and some of that, and that issue. But the other reason I thought it was good to vote for is because it gets it back out there and makes us all talk about it. And that's also, because I'm an elected school board member, I like the fact that there's an educational component on, and some of those dollars should go to the schools and educate young adults, because they're involved in it regardless. And the biggest thing we all learn is when we take the time and get educated on it. And so that was the biggest reason. I didn't want it to just go away and then be pushed back. And if you put it out there in front of everybody, then let's talk about it. And everybody will get smarter, more informed, and they'll make intelligent decisions because of that. So.
And that's one of the other major big reasons that Eric and I had discussed. Is one of the major elements is, we've got experience both as a professional and life experience seeing the drug culture and experiencing that and seeing how that affects everything. And as it stands around here on this borough and as well as the state, as well as everywhere in the country, there's major real-world drug problems. Major real-world drug problems, especially here. The methamphetamine, the opiates, the cocaine's not really anything. The heroin, the prescription pills, and the meth. Those are the real drugs that need to be ostracized and isolated, and we need to reform our drug education that doesn't just say no. Just say no, but daddy and mommy drink wine and everything, and So these kids don't have a credible authority to go to. You know, you saw in the video where the parents that have an open dialogue, open critical dialogue with their children, they're going to be able to have that conversation at the right time. And it's not going to be perfect in every circumstance, but if you arm your kids with critical information and you ostracize the elements that need to be ostracized, and then you then handle and manage the substances like tobacco or caffeine or alcohol or cannabis. You can manage those one way, and then these need to be over here. And the sooner we do that, the better it's going to be. And putting that money, and then what Tim has said is putting that money, and hopefully that the legislators and other folks will be able to work out where this revenue will go to instead of just into the general fund, making it go to specific drug education and awareness. Because we see in Colorado right now they have a couple of $20 million good to know program, and I think it'll be a great idea for the state is to have some campaigns how to be responsible and how to bridge the gap between the people, the baby boomers, the people that haven't smoked before, that get up there and say, hey, you know what, I do want to kind of try this. I do want to kind of see what this is like, to be able to have an education for them to make it easier for them.
Ma'am, you have a question in the back?
I kind of wanted to address concerns in the school system. I'm a parent of 4 children. I have elementary, middle school, and 2 graduated from high school. And I did vote yes on this proposition. I do not use recreationally myself, but I have used medicinally in the past. I would like to be able to use medicinally without the worry of being prosecuted. But from the beginning of time, I've always had an open dialogue with my children. If they come to me with questions about drugs or alcohol or sex, if you bring it to me, you will not get in trouble. I will give you honest answers. We'll have an open dialogue. And I've done that with my children. And I know a lot of people who are opposed think that marijuana is a gateway drug. From my experience with my children and their friends, it's alcohol. It's the narcotics that they find in their parents' medicine cabinets. And I think that if there were a way for the school district or even in this kind of a forum where we had an open dialogue without the children fearing of getting in trouble, you could learn a lot from the kids in the community. And I don't think that marijuana is what we need to be worrying about.
That's a great point, and I don't think we give them that opportunity. We don't really hear much from them, but I'll bet if you took the average high schooler, they would be honest that it was like, I went to Savannah High, graduated in '88. I could get marijuana within 15 minutes usually, take about a week to line up alcohol. I didn't really care a whole lot for alcohol, but cake parties and stuff with young people and a few, skeezy 22-year-olds. It's just the people they run into going into the trailer courts and places to go get pot, you run into the other drugs and other people you don't want your children around. So it's a real hard thing. I've asked multiple times to be able to come and encounter the DARE program, which has been shown scientifically not to do anything, in fact, it's counterproductive. But they never give anybody else a chance to let me to come and talk to them about their rights, and they don't necessarily have to narc out anybody in their home. I don't think it's good. We've created so many people watching one another, this snitch nation thing. It's the wrong attitude, and kids pick up on hypocrisy just like adults do. Children learn to manipulate very, very young, and they learn to pick up on manipulation and hypocrisy extremely young. So we're not fooling them, I don't think, and just so you know, it never worked, no matter what it is. But Lee, you have something to add?
Well, I would like to add too, if there were any way for the school districts to assemble an open forum like this, and whether the children wanted to remain anonymous, or, there was a no fear kind of, atmosphere, you can be open, we would learn a lot from these kids about how the drugs are coming to them, how and where they're being used, and law enforcement could learn a lot on how to kind of, put the cap on this. My children have told me it is easier for them to get ecstasy, methamphetamines, alcohol, LSD, acid, than it is to get marijuana. That's very, very to me as a parent of kids in school right now.
Eric, I just want to answer that real quick from this. We have a very good working relationship with law enforcement in the school district. There's officers in the classroom or in the high schools, and they participate. And they find out a lot of things, and trust me, they know some of this. But I certainly, from the school board side, will look into some forums also.
That'd be a great idea. I would have never thought of that. Great idea.
I was gonna mention, resiliency-based, education for drug program is something Colorado is using. It is probably the answer to the just say no in that it concentrates on not lying to the kids, and it concentrates on teaching resiliency to obstacles in life rather than just trying to say, don't do this and hope they'll find you through it. So they go ahead and they group tobacco, alcohol, marijuana. They combine a lot of the things all into one program, and like I said, it's called resiliency based. And I just from reading through it, from my own standpoint, I definitely appreciated it over the DARE program.
Local businesses.
Well, I do plan on meeting the borough meeting tomorrow, and I have to tell you, I don't know if anybody has the answer to that, but you've seen among our borough that they really seem to just try to solve problems. I don't see our borough trying to create situations and put more work on their plate, excuse me, but you seem like you're just doing what you need to do. I'm still having a hard time why Kelly Wolf has brought this initiative up. Are there a group of people that like think we have a huge, quote, pot farm problem arising? What problem does he think we're solving? Has anybody talked to him?
I haven't talked to him directly, but he said that he's been contacted by constituents that are worried about pot farms popping up. And we got an email from him.
Does he not have faith in the regulatory?
Well, he wasn't able to be here because he had a work conflict. He did email me and told me he was going to put off the borough public hearing until March, the first meeting, if he gets it past the vote that Mayor Navarre talked about. But we haven't been able to pin him down on exactly I get the most from the newspaper where he said, terrified of pot farms popping up. Those two verbs, popping up and terrified.
The state regulators for input? I mean, I'm trying to
I don't know what constituents that he has that are terrified about that. The Casilla area that he represents, they don't represent anyone. KV. I keep getting, I'm sorry, California and Casilla, so close. I apologize, but I don't think there's as many large tract landowners there. So there are more neighborhoods and such, and it makes sense that you don't want one necessarily right there in the neighborhood, but that's not going to be really possible. I think his last foray was, the statute says we can ban it locally, so I'm just going to put it on the ballot and let people decide this. Let the people decide, but it's the same reason the Alaska Supreme Court said zoning by fiat and allowing initiatives and things like that is not the way to do it, because we have a comprehensive plan, there's a procedure in place. Just as in a criminal trial, you wouldn't allow people just to take the majority vote at the beginning. There are procedures in place to protect everybody's rights, so that.
Why do you think he would be bringing up something that could easily be struck down by our Alaska?
I wish he was here to
I'm
ask
just
it.
wondering why.
He's at work. I'm not saying he's ducking, and he's here at the first one, but that's all I know.
Ideology. Yeah, there's a couple of folks here and there that it's just ideology.
I tried to call him. I didn't try to call him. I did call, but he wasn't here. And I'm in his district, and I left a message, and I've known him for 25 years. He didn't return the call. I just wanted to mention that I've got 3 times the votes that you got.
Let me point out also that this is a pro vote group or against banning it. But there are a lot of people in our communities who are still very fearful about what it might mean. And so I guess I want to offer that caution also, because I hear from them too, saying, you know, they want to see it banned on the Kenai Peninsula. And my response to, absolutely. No, good.
question was, why is he doing it? And I don't know yet, but he'll have an opportunity to do that. And he
Because
doesn't,
we haven't gotten to regulation. I actually am for the vote yes, I too, but I have many of the same concerns as people who voted no. Many of the same concerns. So I'm waiting for regulators to see how that they're gonna implement. And so I'm a little surprised that I'm gonna be going to a borough meeting, which I hardly ever do, because we don't know what it's gonna look like. We don't know how many licenses are gonna be.
and we don't even know what the law is going to look like. When they passed what are called local options when it comes to alcohol, there's a statute right on point, and then they had to create regulations. It's very regimented. Just the fact that the new legislation says you can do initiatives and ordinances to ban it, that doesn't mean you can just do simply an ordinance and ban it. There have to be other things in place. So this vote might be illegal from the beginning. I'm telling you, it's basically a zoning law, and you don't get to do that by ordinance without going through planning commission for very good reason in Griswold versus City of Homer. So there's just so much we don't know. I think it's being done in a vacuum, but like you just said, I'm a pro guy, so that's how my bias is going to see it. And I haven't heard a good argument on the other side. I'm open-minded, but I don't know exactly why he's doing it, but it doesn't surprise me.
You know, and that's, again, that's another reason why we're having these town hall meetings, and we'll have another upcoming ones, is to create the atmosphere where people that are anti can come out and talk about it. You know, we try to maintain this as being fairly neutral, everybody knows what we're advocating for, but we've encouraged people, especially the anti-people that are so against it, to come in here. You're not gonna get hounded, you're not gonna get berated, you're gonna be treated with respect, and that's what all of these town halls are about, is about respect and listening, because there is the gap between experience and context and no context. And I found when we start talking to these people, like Kelly Wolf, and these people that are so against it, get them to say, explain your vision. Let's walk through this. You say, but they're gonna pop up, okay, walk through your vision with me. And when you take the time and you start, getting them to then add those details of their vision, a lot of them are a little deer in the headlights.
Or they might see that there's another way to get, we think that there's lots of ways to get to good solutions. There's more than one way to skin a cat. That's what we created this for. We've come up with many good ones that were tailored by the community to fit our local needs. So why are you doing it again? Tim, go ahead, you got another question.
Hello?
Hello.
My name is Michelle Holly. I own Alaska Real Estate Network. I'm here locally. I have my office in Soldotna. I also have Alaska Cannabis Network because I believe in this wholeheartedly. I have an abundance of passion for this subject. You see, about 3.5 years ago, I kind of got down on my luck. I'm born and raised here, about third generation of going Alaskan for me here. So I've been around a while. I've been up and down. In fact, I grew up on 4th and Barrow downtown when I'm 62 years old. I know how things can move in on people. When I was a child, the Mermaid Room moved in next to my father's hotel, and then the Wild Cherry came across and lived there across the street. You can see what happened to our business. It went downhill fast. And you know what happened? My father got Parkinson's disease, and it was in the early 60s. Okay, Dr. John Kennedy was going down. Anyway, he was walking down the street doing one of these numbers like this, and it's a darn good thing that the local police knew who he was and what was going on, because otherwise he would have been picked up in his inebriated. So at the age of 14, I took the car keys in my hand and started driving my father around, because we had go places like Kenai. We had a homestead there. We've been in the business down here doing real estate for a very long time. I used to own hurricanes, Kenai River fishing. I know a lot of people here, and I love a lot of people here. I love everybody. And you know what? We all live on this highway. All the way from Homer to Gertrude. I spent 25 years in Gertrude. I come down here, too many people out there, 2.5 years, too much. Here I am down here. And first of all, I want to say thank you very, very, very much for all of you showing up here tonight. You should all give yourselves a hand, because it takes a lot to get up and get out of your seat, get off your couch, turn your TV off and do something. And you're doing it at a grassroots level. I appreciate that. I appreciate Mr. Navarro here showing up. I appreciate these attorneys over here, Mr. Bray. I don't know everybody's names, okay? I'm not going to repeat them, but I thank you very, very, very much for showing up. Now, let me tell you a little bit. I'll keep it short. I'm loaded to 3 minutes. tomorrow, so I'm gonna tell you all here, okay? 3.5 years ago, I was down on my luck, pretty bad, something bad happened to me, I'm not gonna share that with you. But I was in a used car lot, helping a friend out in Anchorage sell some cars. At the end of the year, he wanted to go off to Hawaii and move some cars. So I said, sure, I'll stand by for you. My business is in the toilet, my life's in the toilet, I'll sell a few cars for you. You know who walked in? Bub. Does anybody know who Bub is? Bub's Pizza? No. Picked up his food all the time. It's really, really good pizza. Now, Bub was telling me a story. He just had a kidney removed, his right kidney. He's getting over it and doing pretty darn good. And I said, Bub, you know what I need? I need a pile of dishes about a mile high because I got some stuff to work out and I know dishes will do it. He said, hey, Michelle, I only pay $8 an hour. What are you thinking? I said, I'm thinking I need a pile of dishes with the duct tape in my mouth. Because otherwise I'm going to jail. He says, come on over, wash my dishes, eat some pizza, go make friends. I said, great. Now watch Bub go through the next year of his life. He lost his other kid. He's got 5 kids. He's a big person in his community. He's done so much for the people around here. You all know Bub. Anyway, he died. And just before he died, I went to my computer because I'm very computer literate. And I typed in natural cancer cures. Okay? Typed that in there. And I didn't know anything about cannabis. Oh my God. 3.5 years later, I have what I would say a PhD in cannabis. Okay? I didn't ask for it. I don't know. I'm like, whatever, I'm still real estate for a living. So, what I found out was, this stuff is a miracle drug. It really is. And we all need an education. We all need to pick up the ball. We all need to see what the opportunity is for us. Because this is a tremendous opportunity for this United Peninsula. I'll tell you, I've been talking to people all over the state. Okay? People in Fairbanks, those real estate agents are going, hey, yes, hello, hello, hello. I've been doing nothing but talking about cannabis real estate since the vote every day, 24/7. I built a website, it's on Facebook, you can find it. Same as my real estate business, it's called Alaska Cannabis Network. I spend every waking hour going all over the world looking for information to give you all for free, for no other reason to let you know. That you don't have to be fun. You don't have to leave with him take 5 kids. Had I known what I know today, Bob would have had the oil. I didn't know he'd be here, but there's a good chance he would have. And then there's Shuttle down the road, and Sharon up that way, and this guy this way, and that guy that way. You all have friends that are in the grave today, or doing poorly. I suggest you take a very serious look at this drug. And it's not even a drug. It's a friggin' weed, for God's sake. It grows in the ditch.
Michelle, can you tell people about the email you got back from Kelly?
Oh, Kelly
The
Wolf.
one I read
Kelly
on the
Wolf.
phone.
Okay.
I tried to read on the radio and
I know.
lost my
You did
shit.
it. Yeah, you lost your stuff there. That's okay. I've lost my stuff all week over that. Kelly Wolf, I wrote him an email and I said, you know, and I tend to be a little, I give it, you know, I can't get flamboyant. And I am so passionate about this. I really, really am. There's a guy that's known me for a long time. Anyway, Kelly in an email. So I sent Kelly an email several weeks back, and I listed probably 50, I don't know, how many was there in there? At least 150, 200 references, medical references, government medical references to what goes on with cannabis as they're finding out. He threw it in the trash. And you take a look at it. So, you know, I got a feeling that it's kind of bothering me that you're using attention to that, seeing as I'm so passionate and all. And I sent him another email, and I said, Mr. Kelly, I toned it down. I tried to tone it down, but still it came off as condescending. Because of my experience talking with these wonderful people, and I tell you, they're great. It is like you're talking to someone that has no education at all. And when you sit in front of the computer for 3.5 years and put nothing but cannabis in your head, you become an expert on it. So how do you talk to somebody? They don't know. Some of the questions that have come back to me from these people are so elementary that any of us, it's extremely difficult to make the gap to talk to them. So we came off as kind of crazy. And that's okay too, because I hope we are.
So what did he say?
So, Mr. Kelly, what did he say? I read the email and I just started laughing so hard I couldn't stop. And then I didn't expect you to read it on the air and you started laughing. He didn't type it from his phone, folks. Okay, he sat at a computer and typed this letter. It wasn't on the fly, like people would like you to experience.
It was on an iPad, but what was his answer about why he's doing it?
He didn't have an answer. Was there an answer there? Eric, you read the letter?
He said that he's had constituents who've asked him to, and the law allows us to ban.
Yes, that was exactly what he said. Okay, that was the answer.
Okay, we gotta get this wrapped
Okay,
up.
bye.
Last thing, again, thanks to everybody for coming, on the tables and on the tables to the side. The working groups, a lot of you have emailed me back, and I've got your elections on which working groups. But if you could grab the same one or the one tonight, because it'll allow you to scratch off dates you'll be gone. It's gonna be very hard to get all these people into working groups on the same date. And I only have so much time, so if you could please fill this out, scratching out days you expect to be on vacation or out of town, it'll make trying to get us together to make these working groups on DUIs and safe working environments and health and safety issues. Please, again, fill that out. And then the next meetings we'll have will be working group meetings to prepare recommendations to the local lawmakers as we go along. So for the next several months, we're going to try to get those groups together. It's going to be hard to find times and places that work for everybody. So the more information you can give me, please, the better. And again, we're well past what I thought we were going to go. I can't thank you all enough for being here. We don't have a next meeting yet. That's why I'm asking people to fill this out. And I'll be putting it on our website and in my articles in the Clarion on Mondays. So I also have everybody's email, and I email and give invites to everybody. We expect to probably be a month or two out. Thank you for coming, everybody.
And just a reminder too, tomorrow is assembly meeting.
6 o'clock.
And then we're also looking to, on the 24th, of having a private get-together celebrating the end of prohibition. And it's on our Facebook social page, all the information that you need.
Yeah, if you show up at the borough tomorrow, keep your comments to 3 minutes, so maybe write some bullet points so you don't wander. Thank you.
You guys can just send these up here. Yeah, thanks a lot for coming. I'll get you.
Yeah. Oh, excellent, all right. Oh, okay. Wow. I know exactly where you're coming from. I would encourage you to definitely get on the website. Oh, fantastic, yeah. I would encourage you to get on the website, because we definitely, we offer a voice, for businesses. Well, I do some of believe it or not, we try to do as much of it online. We're really good at getting all the members to say, hey, there's been movement on this and this politician. It was nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Oh, yeah, I should. I should. I've got two kids and a farm and a contract company and I'm doing this. So I'm fortunate. I do. And my wife and I talk about this all the time. How I'm going to do this, I do yoga and exercise. Right. Certainly, that's right. Yeah. No, that's true. Right. Right. I've got my little, she's 4, she's 4-year-old girl. Nice to talk with you. I'm sure we'll see you. Hello, how are you? Yes. Nice to meet you, actually. Sure, absolutely.